The money's running out, and she's looking for the next thing. She's looking for the next advice, and it depends who this astrologer is. If she finds somebody as manipulative as her, if she finds somebody as unscrupulous as her, the advice could be to leave him. The advice could be your star signs tell you it's time to move on. Meghan's career and potentially her relationship is on death row. She now is at the end.
Meghan Markle has stopped scheduling business meetings unless her astrologer confirms the chart is aligned, and the operational consequences of that practice are now being documented by Rob Shuter, the veteran American show business reporter who runs the Naughty But Nice Substack. Shuter has spoken directly with at least one business contact whose attempt to schedule a Zoom meeting with Meghan was declined on the explicit grounds that the energy was wrong, the chart was off, and the meeting would have to wait. The contact reported this to Shuter as the operational reality of attempting to do business with the Sussex household in the current configuration. The structural meaning is that Meghan's commercial decision-making is now being filtered through an astrological intermediary whose advice determines whether and when meetings, projects, and partnerships proceed. This is the central reporting of the outspoken broadcast hosted by Dan Wootton with Shuter this week, and it sits at the center of a broader analytical picture that Shuter has assembled through his California sourcing. The pattern is not casual horoscope reading. Meghan now consults star charts, energy readings, and spiritual advisors before personal and professional moves.
By the way, it will never last. She'll fall out with these astrologers. That'll be ghosted. She'll be on to the next, probably Scientology next.
Harry jumping into astrology too, maybe to keep her happy. He's clearly not happy, but he's also too a very weak person.
She links recent business frustrations, including the contraction of the Netflix relationship, to cosmic misalignment and bad timing. She has begun framing the period from 2019 to April 2026 as the worst 7 years of her life, with her astrologer telling her that the difficult cycle has now ended. The astrological framing she posted on Instagram in late April, directed at Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, and Aquarius signs, claiming that on April 25th, the hardest 7 years of those signs' lives had concluded, was the public expression of advice she has been receiving privately for an extended period. Shuter's structural framing of the development is that Meghan is engaged in what American medical culture calls doctor shopping. The phrase describes the pattern in which a patient who cannot find a legitimate medical professional to provide the diagnosis or prescription the patient wants continues to consult new doctors until one accommodates the demand. Shuter applies the same framework to Meghan's astrological consultation pattern. Meghan, with her resources and access, could engage the most reputable astrologers in the world if she wanted genuine engagement with the practice. She has not done so. She has instead, on Shuter's sourcing, found an astrologer who confirms what she already believes.
Things are so troubled that Meghan Markle has now become totally obsessed with astrology because she is trying to do everything possible to save her career, to save her marriage. Now,
the structural function of the relationship is not astrological insight. It is confirmation that Meghan's commercial difficulties are caused by the universe rather than by her own decisions. The astrologer provides the cosmic permission to externalize responsibility. The Princess Diana dimension of the development is the structural feature Shuter identifies as the operational hook through which the astrology obsession sustains itself within the Sussex marriage. Princess Diana famously consulted astrologers, psychics, and spiritual advisors during periods of uncertainty. Diana's relationship with these practitioners was on Wootton's direct sourcing through Simone Simmons, Diana's psychic and close friend, completely genuine. Diana believed in the practice. Diana lived by the readings she received. The structural meaning is that Diana's faith in astrology and psychic counsel was authentic and was experienced as belief rather than as instrumental tool. Meghan's adoption of the same practice is, in Shuter's professional reading, instrumental rather than authentic. Meghan is using the astrological framing because Harry's emotional connection to his mother means that any practice Diana embraced carries automatic weight with Harry. The astrology obsession is therefore positioned as a Diana-style identification that softens any potential Harry resistance to whatever decisions the astrologer subsequently recommends. The structural risk this configuration produces is the one Shooter identifies as the operational concern of those who knew Diana well. If the astrologer Meghan has selected is herself unscrupulous, or if she calibrates her advice to align with Meghan's own preferences for action, the advice could escalate to recommending that Meghan leave Harry. The astrological framing would convert the marital decision into a cosmic alignment question. The stars indicated the marriage was meant to be. The stars now indicate the time has come to move on.
This is no longer casual for Meghan. One insider tells Naughty But Nice she checks timing, signs, and energies before almost anything important. Astrology has become part of how she operates.
Wotton's parallel observation, drawing on Lady Colin Campbell's structural framework, is that Meghan will not actually take this step unless a wealthier alternative is in place. The astrological framing might recommend departure, but the operational mathematics of the household would not support an actual departure without a successor financial structure. The astrological cover therefore prepares the option without forcing the execution. Shooter's broader operational framing on what has produced this trajectory is that Meghan has run out of external scapegoats. The British royal family was the first scapegoat, with the Oprah interview converting the family relationship into the source of all difficulty. The internal palace staff were the next category, with Angela Kelly, Catherine herself, and a series of named figures being briefed against through the post-Megxit period.
In other words, it's not just that she's a total talentless bitch, it's in the stars.
The Sussex household staff were the next category, with the documented Sussex Survivors Club composition and the Jason Knauf email providing the operational evidence of how the staff layer was treated. Netflix executives are the most recent operational target, with the briefing pattern Alison Boshoff documented in the Daily Mail, showing that Sussex sourcing has been pointing fingers at specific Netflix figures for the contraction of the contract value. Each of these scapegoat categories has now been exhausted. The audience reading the cumulative pattern has reached the conclusion that the common variable across all the scapegoats is Meghan herself. The astrological framing is therefore the next scapegoat after all the human scapegoats have been exhausted. Bad timing, misaligned charts, negative energy. None of these can be questioned in the way that the previous scapegoats could be. The astrological framing is structurally immune to factual rebuttal. Shooter's death row metaphor for the development is offered with care because the framing is aggressive, but the structural analysis it captures is precise.
Princess Diana famously turned to astrologers, psychics, and spiritual advisors during periods of uncertainty, and insiders say Meghan is now following a strikingly similar path. At this point, astrology is not a hobby, says one source. It's part of how she runs her life.
The metaphor compares Meghan's situation to the well-documented pattern in which American death row prisoners frequently develop intense religious faith in the weeks before execution. The development is, on Shooter's framing, a recognizable psychological pattern in which someone facing a defined endpoint reaches for an external framework that converts the endpoint into something other than personal failure. Meghan's commercial career, on the evidence Shooter and Wotton have both been documenting, is approaching such an endpoint. The astrological framing converts the approaching endpoint into a cosmic narrative in which Meghan is not failing, but instead the universe is delivering preordained outcomes. The structural function is the same as the death row religious conversion. The conversion does not change the underlying trajectory, it changes the meaning Meghan can assign to the trajectory while it continues.
Of what she does, I think a lot of it is just to try and trick Prince Harry and keep Prince Harry on board with this failing marriage.
The psychological framing Shooter offers, which he approaches with professional caution, is that the development is consistent with a celebrity pattern he has observed across his career. Tom Cruise's adoption of Scientology, John Travolta's parallel involvement, and the broader pattern of high-profile figures finding ideological or spiritual frameworks during periods of career difficulty follow the same structural arc. The framework provides external explanation for difficulties the figure does not want to attribute to internal causes. The framework provides community and reinforcement at moments when the broader social network is contracting. The framework provides a vocabulary for the figure's preferred narrative of victimhood. Shooter explicitly raises the parallel to Katie Holmes during her marriage to Tom Cruise, in which Holmes was understood to be seeking something through Scientology that the relationship was not providing. Meghan's astrology adoption, in Shooter's framing, is operationally similar. She is seeking something the marriage is not providing, and the astrologer is the figure she has selected to provide it. The internal social isolation Shooter's sources document is the structural condition that makes the astrology obsession sustainable. There is nobody left to challenge Meghan's decisions in the household. The figures who would push back, who would debate, who would conduct the ordinary commercial deliberation that successful businesses require, have all been removed. Shooter compares the dynamic to the difference between a healthy organization, in which disagreement is the basis of decision quality, and an organization in which disagreement results in immediate departure of the disagreeing figure. The Sussex household operates under the second model. The result is that Meghan now has no functional counterweight within the household to whatever advice the astrologer provides. Harry is not in the position to provide that counterweight.
I take it at face value, at least initially, that she now is looking for something else. And we see this a lot, particularly with celebrities. When things are not going well, a lot of celebrities find Scientology, they find God, they find a muse. And so this is not that unusual. And what it really is about is celebrities, famous people often don't want to accept any responsibility if they're freer, if they're light.
He is, on Shooter's framing, a weak figure who is structurally unable to challenge the framing his wife is operating within. The astrology obsession therefore proceeds without internal resistance. The Netflix call conduct pattern that has been previously documented through staff sourcing provides the operational parallel. Netflix employees who worked on Sussex projects have reported that during difficult video calls, Meghan would simply hang up and turn the camera off when she became frustrated, then subsequently blamed the abrupt termination on the children needing attention. The pattern on Wotton's reading captures the same operational disposition that the astrology obsession now expresses through a different vocabulary. The framing then was that domestic responsibility required her departure from the call. The framing now is that the chart was off and the energy was wrong. The underlying behavior is the same. Difficult interactions are terminated unilaterally on a pretext that the other party cannot challenge without being seen to challenge the protected category, whether domestic motherhood or spiritual practice. The vocabulary changes. The behavioral pattern is consistent. Shooter's professional commentary on what a genuine astrology adherent would say about the current Meghan configuration is structurally important.
Self, or their talent, or their lack of work ethic, they can blame somebody else. And I think that's partly what's going on here with Meghan, but I do think too, and we get to it eventually in the story, forgive me for teasing, but ultimately this is about Princess Diana. The big difference, Dan, you got it right, is Diana fundamentally believed this.
A reputable astrologer would tell a client that the practice is about awareness and consciousness of cosmic timing rather than about substituting for the obligation to show up to one's life. The reading might suggest certain days as better suited for certain decisions than others. The reading would not provide cover for the systematic cancellation of business commitments. Meghan, on Shooter's sourcing, is taking the practice to an extreme that no responsible practitioner would endorse. The structural meaning is that Meghan is not engaging with astrology as a discipline. She is using the language of astrology to legitimize behavior patterns that have nothing to do with the discipline itself. The next stage prediction Wotton offers, which Shooter endorses, is that Meghan will eventually fall out with her current astrologer as well, in the same pattern that has characterized every previous relationship in which she has sought professional support. The successor framework will be the next ideological structure that provides her the external explanation she requires.
So in the British royal family, it was a conspiracy. It was Catherine. It was Angela Kelly. They were all to blame. Then it was her own staff members. Then she goes to America. Oh no, it's the terrible people at Netflix. It's the terrible people at Spotify. Meghan Markle will always find anything she can not to have to look inwards.
Scientology is the candidate Wotton names. The pattern of celebrity ideological adoption Shooter has documented across his career suggests the prediction is plausible. Wotton's structural counter-observation on Diana herself is worth presenting because it specifies the difference between Diana's authentic astrology engagement and Meghan's instrumental version. Diana believed. Diana experienced the readings as connecting her to truths she could not access through other channels. Diana would, however, also turn up to her engagements, conduct her duty, fulfill her institutional obligations, and live her life around the readings rather than substituting the readings for the life.
Finding Jesus. That happens so much here in America, I think in Britain too. And I think it's fair to say this metaphor might be too aggressive, but I think it's fair to say Meghan's career and potentially her relationship is on death row. She now is at the end, and she's not a stupid person. She might be vain, she might be self-absorbed, but she isn't stupid. She has to know that to some degree, so she can't blame the usual suspects.
Meghan's pattern on Shooter's sourcing is the inverse. The readings are now the operational basis for whether the life proceeds. Business meetings are deferred or cancelled based on chart alignment. Personal decisions are calibrated to cosmic timing. The readings are not framing a life that is being lived in parallel. The readings are determining whether the life proceeds at all. A genuine astrology adherent would, in this reading, be a less troubled figure than Meghan now appears to be. The authentic believer integrates the readings into ongoing life. The instrumental user substitutes the readings for the difficult decisions life requires. The Lauren Sanchez back-channel attempt that Shooter has separately reported is the parallel commercial story that the same broadcast develops. Meghan has now realized that her earlier private dismissal of Lauren Sanchez as loud, thirsty, and painfully performative closed off a significant commercial pathway that she now needs. The Bezos household represents access to Amazon, Whole Foods, The Washington Post, Blue Origin, and the broader commercial network the Bezos enterprises operate within.
We use is doctor shop. When you can't find a doctor, a legitimate doctor, to do what you want, like a Michael Jackson, you keep shopping until you find somebody who does. That's what Meghan has done, I'm told, in the world of astrology. She hasn't thought out the greatest astrologer. With her resources and her power, she could have the most amazing people do her charts, sit with her. She hasn't done that.
With Netflix contracting and other commercial pathways closing, Hulu, which is owned by Disney, and Amazon Prime Video, which Bezos controls, are the next streaming options for any future Sussex content deal. Meghan reportedly fancies positioning herself for Amazon Prime Video, which would require the Sanchez relationship to be repaired. The Sussex team has therefore initiated a back-channel campaign of handwritten notes, curated gifts, homemade jam, and luxury treats directed at Sanchez. The campaign has been routed in part through Kris Jenner, who is friends with both women. Shooter's professional reading of the prospects is unsparing. Lauren Sanchez was dismissed by Hollywood for years on roughly the same grounds Meghan now applies to her, and Sanchez remembers exactly who treated her well and who did not when she was the weekend host of Extra.
But it's not her, it's the universe out to get her. She recently said it's the worst 7 years of her life, and that now her astrologer has told her is over. And so you're right, it won't last, this will blow up, but at the moment, this is where Meghan is now.
Sanchez has now married Jeff Bezos. The people who treated her badly are now seeking her favor. Sanchez is not in the position of needing to extend her favor to figures who previously withheld theirs. The repair campaign is therefore likely to fail. The structural significance of the failed Sanchez relationship is that it forecloses what Wotton characterizes as the obvious commercial lifeline that the Sussex household has now lost. Was Never, which is Lady Colin Campbell's reportedly preferred name for the As Ever brand, would have benefited enormously from Amazon Prime distribution. The brand would have had product placement opportunities, distribution leverage, and the digital marketing infrastructure that Amazon provides. None of that is now available. Meghan treated Sanchez as a piece of dirt on her shoe at the moment when Sanchez was ascending. The cost of that treatment is now the structural foreclosure of the Amazon pathway. The post-divorce book Shooter previously reported, and which Vanity Fair has now corroborated, is the deeper commercial preparation that runs underneath the astrology and Sanchez stories.
There's nobody left in the organization. There's nobody to talk to debate with, to have conversations with. I think the most healthy companies I've worked for and the way that I run my business is we do have meetings and we do have disagreements. If you do that with Meghan, you're gone. And so there's nobody left now apart from this astrological world. And so
Meghan has been shopping a post-divorce book to publishing houses while still married to Harry. The structural meaning is that the autobiography project Hines documented in the Daily Mail, with Oprah, Melody Hobson, Shonda Rhimes, and Nicole Avant positioned as the Four Women's Circle, includes a divorce-specific subset of material that is being prepared as a separate commercial product. The publishing industry approaches are ongoing despite the marriage continuing. The structural reading Wotton offers, which Shooter endorses, is that Meghan is not actually attempting to engineer the divorce. The divorce book preparation is the contingent commercial product that will be deployed when the divorce eventually occurs, which Meghan controls the timing of. The current moment is not the right moment, because no successor financial structure is in place. The book is prepared. The moment is not yet ready. The Dan Wakeford People magazine reporting that has refreshed this analytical picture is structurally consequential because of who Wakeford is. Wakeford was the editor at People magazine for an extended period and was, during much of that period, a Sussex ally. People magazine operated as the in-house newsletter of the Sussex household across the years in which Wakeford ran the editorial operation.
Suggests that she is trying another tactic. And I'm sorry, Rob, I'm just going to say it. This is a highly emotionally manipulative woman. And that to me sounds like she's trying a different tactic with Harry. It's a bit like, you better be careful because I can walk away too.
The fact that Wakeford has now produced a report identifying the money as running out, identifying the 5-year runway against the current burn rate, and identifying the structural difficulty of the household's financial trajectory is the inflection point at which Sussex-friendly American mainstream media has begun reporting the operational reality rather than the public relations construction. Shooter's professional observation is that he wishes Wakeford had done it on the People cover and had done it sooner, but the development is nevertheless significant. When the magazine that historically protected the Sussex narrative begins reporting the contraction, the protective ecosystem has materially thinned.
This, not that she blew it, that he blew it. And I think she's starting to realize now that the partner she's got, not just in life, but in business, doesn't have the ambition, the drive, the passion that she has. And I think she's going to get sick of dragging him along. Meghan uses people to the point that it gets her to the next step. And then she's very happy to cut and run. She's done it even with her own family, with the royal family. Harry will eventually be tossed aside by Meghan Markle. The question is when.
The audience reading, people can now see the same picture that the Independent Commentary Network has been documenting for years. Harry's Montana suggestion, which has appeared in commentary this week through multiple sources, is the parallel signal of his own state of mind. Harry has reportedly suggested to Meghan that the household relocate to Montana, that they live a simpler and cheaper life, that the operational pressure of maintaining the Montecito lifestyle could be released through geographical and financial downsizing. Wotton's framing is that the Montana suggestion is Harry's own coded expression of his desire to exit the current arrangement. He is not in a position to leave the marriage directly. He is, however, in a position to suggest changes to the lifestyle that would, if executed, undermine the commercial structure that justifies the marriage's continuation. The Montana suggestion is therefore the indirect signal that Harry's tolerance of the current configuration is reaching its limit. even if his direct capacity to terminate the configuration is structurally constrained. Shooter's billionaire-class observation, drawing on his New York and Los Angeles social network across decades, is structurally consequential. The billionaire class, which is distinct from the millionaire class, does not seek out figures like Meghan as romantic partners.
Know a lot of very wealthy people. This billionaire club that does exist, it's a billionaire class, not millionaire billionaires. They are not looking for somebody like Meghan Markle. Even Jeff Bezos, who married Lauren Sanchez, she's not as toxic as Meghan Markle.
Billionaires of the kind Meghan would need to attract for a successor financial structure want beauty paired with operational discretion. They do not want publicity, spotlight, or constant attention. They want to live their wealth privately. Lauren Sanchez was unusual in that she married Bezos despite a public profile that included her own loud presence. Bezos accepted that profile because he had developed his own public confidence. The next billionaire who would consider Meghan would have to accept a public profile substantially more confrontational than Sanchez's, paired with a documented history of family conflict, charity vehicle disputes, and Hollywood ecosystem rejection. Shooter's professional assessment is that no such billionaire exists in his observation of the New York and Los Angeles networks. Meghan has been casting the net for years on Wotton's separate sourcing. The net has not produced the successor figure. The marriage to Harry therefore holds by structural default rather than by operational choice. The closing observation is that the Sussex household has now entered the phase Wotton characterizes as terminal commercial decline. The Netflix contract has reduced, Spotify ended, Better Up concluded. As ever is in continued test and learn mode, after over a year of operation, public speaking has contracted from the projected $1 million per appearance to approximately $50,000. The Hollywood ecosystem has rejected the household. The Sanchez bridge is closed. The fashion ecosystem rejected the household through the Met Gala non-invitation and the Balenciaga ambassador snub. The institutional royal family has separated through the Highgrove photograph removal, the Sandringham invitation withdrawal, the coronation exclusion, and the King's State Dinner omission of Sussex County from the geographical Christmas card list. The astrology obsession is the operational expression of running out of human scapegoats and reaching for cosmic ones instead. The post-divorce book is prepared but cannot be deployed until the successor financial structure exists, and the successor does not exist. The marriage holds because the financial logic holds. The financial logic holds only as long as the burn rate against the reserves does not exhaust the runway. The Wakeford analysis places the runway at approximately 5 years. 5 years is a measurable horizon. Within that horizon, the operational pressure will continue to intensify, the scapegoats will continue to be cycled through, and the astrology obsession will continue to substitute cosmic framing for the operational reality. The audience reading the trajectory accurately will continue to do so. The verdict has been entered, and the working through of the verdict continues at the operational pace the financial structure permits.